The episode name is 229, New O-Ring Retro Line. My name is Steve. I'm joined by Paul. Hey, Paul.
Wow, it's Paul.
And we got Rob.
I can't believe it's me. It's
me. Yeah. And today, we cut open the topic. It's a retread. I know we've spoken a bit about this before in terms of wishlist items. But now that we are getting Rave Viper, Peter Pilot, and quite possibly at some point in the future, Ketchup and Mustard, we might be in the biz for some new GI Joe and Cobra characters. Be they named characters, be they army builders. We asked you on YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, and the GI Joburg Facebook group what your picks would be for new O-Ring figures. And the responses were voluminous. So much so, we're not going to talk new shit. We're not going to talk about what you're reading, watching, or playing. We're going to cut the sucker open right now. After 2 public service announcements. Public service announcement number 1. We at GI Joburg were very excited to unveil the announcements from Screamin' Eamon Customs, the GI Joe headquarters, the Cobra Temple, and then most recently the USS Flag that his custom project would be putting out sometime in the future. Unfortunately, there has been a very tragic end to the tale, with Mr. Eamon himself apologizing profusely to his backers after taking their money that he could not fulfill the order, and if you chose to get a refund, he'd be able to accommodate that. If you chose to hang in there, because this was caused by a production delay that everybody is getting hit by, whether you're big, small, or minute in your production scale. So a number of people opted for the refund. Some people hung in there. But the reports that we're getting now is that he has disappeared from social media. He has disappeared from all attempts to contact him. And in fact, has gone as far as to block people. So I guess I just wanted to apologize firstly to everybody who might have tragically invested in this project, especially those folks who might have done it off the back of our hype. I realize, like, we do try and report the news, but we also might have enticed people to do business with this guy. And whether he is bona fides or has taken the money and run, it's not our position to say. But I guess this is a caveat and a lesson to us all in the age of crowdfunding, in the age of Kickstarters and fan projects, that we all need to be very careful where we put our money. I realize this is a hollow lesson to the people who have already put their money down and might stand to lose it. To those folks, I would suggest using their PayPal recourse if they can. It might fall outside of the 90-day period, but speak to PayPal, and I wish you well. Public service announcement number 2. Shortly after recording the previous episode, and before publishing it, my Skystriker pre-order got dropped.
Oh.
Yeah. Boom. I had a sneaking suspicion that this might have happened, but, you know, they gave me all the positive signs. I asked them immediately after I paid my deposit, like, is this legit? They're like, yes, your order's in, it's confirmed, locked in, congratulations. You'll only have to pay the balance when we have the item in hand. I was like, sweet.
Damn.
That's amazing. Everyone else has gotten their credit card hit already. But as is the tragedy with some third parties who perhaps didn't realize that this was a HasLab that was closing and kind of didn't have stock in hand, or pre-orders in hand, I should say. They told me that, they were unable to accommodate my order, and so they refunded my deposit, and I was left out in the cold with no Skystriker. I was thinking of putting in a little kind of edit in the previous episode, but I thought that just sounded too bleeding hot, and yeah, I was really stung, guys. I mean, I was saying things to myself like, okay, I'm not bitter. I was there for the party. Like, I was there for the victory lap. You know, I had the knowledge that I had a Skystriker in hand when it crossed the finish line. And so even now, that knowledge cannot be taken away from me. But the truth was I was pretty bitter, and I thought I'd missed my opportunity. Fortunately, if you dial your clocks back to a couple episodes ago when we had Nicholas Amantidis from Action Figure Industries as a guest. AFI, exactly, located right here in the good old Australia. I fully expected all of his pre-orders slots to have been taken. I thought to myself, well, you snooze, you lose, Steve. You backed the wrong horse, pal. But Nick has made a plan, and touch wood, I think I'm still in with the Skystriker. So
that's
there
great
is
news, man.
A happy end to the tale. It could have gone very, very sour very quickly.
You
Wow.
lose some, you win some. That's
Because-
what. Wow.
Wow,
a ride.
What a ride! Because I was actually like gonna get my A into G today and look into that third party link to sort of try and sort out mine.
Yeah.
And-
Anybody who is wondering, they're called Oh My Primus. They're located in Singapore, and boy oh boy, was it looking like a sweet deal because I've got in-laws that live literally in the same neighborhood. But alas, it was not meant to be.
Oh, that sucks, man. But hey, you're getting one from AFI. AFI has come through.
Mhm.
That's amazing. Thank you, Nick. Fighting the good fight, my dude.
Well, fighting the good fight on all fronts. Dropped a video today, for me at least anyways, basically banging the drum a little bit about my reservations with the design of the Skystriker, the HasLab. I mean, there are various nitpicks that I have, but I chose one to focus on, the most low-hanging fruit of all of them, and that's the fact that the wings are not factory fit, that they are separate, and they have that blocky attachment point, which is unfortunate for a Skystriker which is touted as like the ultimate Skystriker. The Skystriker that will push all the rest of ours to the back of the shelf. I don't think it will do that if it doesn't tick that box. I want my Skystriker to be clean. Anyways, we'll see if it has any impact at all. I'm doubting it, but I had to try. I had to take a shot. I have atted Emily from Hasbro, whether she actually has any real power to pass the message on, or if she chooses ignorance is bliss and, I just didn't see it. It's okay. But this is really what comes back to what you were talking about, Rob, with Cooge on the last show, that listen to the fans. And I wanted to challenge you on that, actually, because I do feel like Hasbro listen to their fans. It's just, there are too many of us. We're a deafening roar. They have to be very selective about who they approach for a dialogue, because there's a lot of vitriol out there and toxicity and poisonous opinions that obviously they want to shield themselves from, because why would you want to sift through all the negativity to try and glean the right path? It would kind of make you want to run a mile, because let's face it, like, the most negative people are the most vocal. Anyways, I don't think that scores us any points, but let's see if a minnow like GI Joburg can get the message through. And I would appreciate if everyone listening to this who had the position to do so, to share it, just or comment on it, just make sure it gets some kind of bump. It just increases the chances of maybe someone close to someone in Hasbro brings it up in conversation. Like, oh yeah, it seems there's a bit of groundswell about the wings being detachable. We didn't know there was a problem up till now. It's a pretty simple fix. None of these parts are tooled up yet. Nothing's machined yet. Nothing's set in stone. We haven't finalized the metal tooling. We can do that.
And something that I think was very effective in the video that you did is that you showed footage of the Skystrikers on the deck of the flag, and all of that good play motion stuff that you guys did, and I'm hoping that cements itself subconsciously.
There was a previous edit of it. Sorry, I just have to stop you and say that the previous edit of it had me crashing the Skystriker into the surf. I was like, I expect to play with this toy hard.
Yeah, but
I didn't go with that one.
But hopefully it becomes like a subconscious thing in the minds of hopefully the one or two guys from Hasbro that may see that video, or hopefully see that video, that they go, guys, the YouTube channel that put the flag on the ocean, and everybody be like, what? Yeah, Those guys, they want better wings on the Skystriker. and to that point, I fully agree with you on that, by the way. That has been my biggest issue with it since seeing the prototype images from day one. Like the second they posted those images, if you guys want to our listeners, if you want to rewind to a few episodes ago, you'll hear me also complain about that as well. So I think you've made a very valid point. I think if there's one serious nitpick that we have, and Rob, I'm sorry if it feels like I'm speaking for you as well, but I do have that nitpick as well. And I don't think it's a nitpick, actually. I think it's a very valid point. A nitpick would be me going, I don't like screws in the intakes, but the wings are a very valid argument, a very valid point, very valid criticism of that.
Of course,
of that toy.
I have to also confess that I was composing this video's script in my head the morning I got the announcement that my pre-order had been dropped. And so once that email came through, I was like, "Oh fuck it, I'm not gonna do it. I don't care. I'm not in the club anymore." But now I am back in the club, so I care.
Wow, dude, the fact that the fact that you could still be that positive about it after getting that kind of news, that in itself is impressive.
No, you misunderstand me. I said that I was like not gonna do the video and not gonna bother approaching Hasbro at all after
And
my
then he
pre-order
got the
got
Hail
dropped.
Mary.
Hail
You're
Mary.
Guys,
like,
I
"Now I
am
wanna
new
be
to
in
all
it."
of this. Like, I have not been buying toys made in the last 20 years. I don't know what it's like to have a pre-order. I mean, for everyone else listening to this, it's probably old hat. It's like, oh, Walmart dropped my pre-order the other day. It just jumps on Big Bad Toy Store. I'm like, man, how do you deal with this kind of roller coaster ride, this disappointment? Oof, it stresses me out.
Well, as somebody who does a lot of pre-orders on sites like HLJ and Big Bad Toy Store, and I would say that my collecting life, my modern collecting life, the last, I would say, 10, 15 years has mostly been based on pre-orders. Yeah, man, welcome to the club. I've personally never been in a situation where I've had a pre-order cancelled. So that's crazy. And for me, the most irritating thing is when you do, and I'm sorry, I'm BBTS, I'm not throwing shade at you guys. You guys are great. But it is fun when you like have got a pre-order on BBTS and you're like, yay, I can't wait for XYZ figure to come out. And then you go onto Facebook in the morning and you're like, oh, well, they picked up Snake Eyes Commando at the store. That's nice. And look at those guys playing with their new Ellie Vipers. And you're like, BBTS, when is mine coming out? December? Okay, that
don't
checks
get
out.
swept up in this.
Yeah.
You're a third world kid, man. Your patience is your virtue.
No, it has to be, right?
Exactly. So don't get taken by that
Guys?
notion of impatience. Yeah.
So just just before, and I don't want to forget this because I think it's quite important. It's not a big. It is kind of a big GI Joburg announcement in a lot of ways. I just want to throw a huge happy birthday to Mr. Gary V. Yeah, that's Mr. Chaplin's Motorpod. It was his birthday the other day, and yeah, I just want to shout out a hearty happy birthday, man. I hope it's been an incredible one, and thank you for being part of the Berg Force and for all of the awesomeness. It's great to have you. You've been part of the live audience for a long time. You've been supporting us for a long time, and we just hope you had the best day. So, happy birthday, Gary V. Cool.
I
Sorry,
have
just
a
before I
motor
forget.
pool here in Australia, thanks to Mr. Viola.
There you go,
So,
man.
thanks, Gary.
He's brought all, happiness into our lives in some form or another, and yeah, so we hope that comes around to him as well. That he also gets lots of cool stuff.
Yeah, it went good.
All right.
And
Champing at the bit, guys. We're on the clock, as it were.
it's my
Let's
fault.
do it. We got responses from you guys, so let's read them out on the air.
So Instagram, what do they want from the O-rings? So first up we have Cloaked Bandit. He wants modern era characters like Helix and Shadow Tracker done in O-ring, and other astronauts in Payload spacesuit. To make everyone look like Payload. Nice.
That's an expensive figure to make. Mm-hmm.
I can imagine. I mean, it's quite a complex suit, and it's not the easiest thing to do. But I mean, Hasbro, Make this guy's dream come true.
I mean, it is
Next
an
up-
exquisite toy, no doubt.
No, absolutely. I mean, you can't go wrong. But I mean, more variety, I think. So I like his suggestions of Helix and Shadow Tracker more than I do of 1,000 figures in Payload's suit. Unless they can just do like the suit and then you have multiple heads. But then, of course, you don't have multiple figures. But I'm thinking about this too much. Founding Figures suggests new Viper classes would be interesting. A new faction for Joes to deal with would be really interesting too.
New Viper classes, like what didn't they do? I suppose a data, Dustin Cordish goes into mentioning that it'd be cool to do data Viper in O-ring style.
Dude, that would be rad. I think that would
I
be.
mean,
have
I
I'm
think
spoken
it'd
sure
be
about
there's
a
little-
lot.
lots of other versions of Vipers you could do. You could do subdivisions of ones that already exist. Like Night Vipers, you can have other ones that kind of like support the Night Vipers in their missions. That's sort of
Twilight Vipers.
I'm remembering now. Dustin also went on to say like Para Viper, who was a modern sort of 25th anniversary new Viper class.
Yeah, they were very cool.
Very, very cool.
I mean,
Love-
like I love those head sculpts. Those helmets were so good.
And all of the Rise of Cobra style of Vipers, those kind of Neo Vipers with their
yeah. You could
very,
redo those
very
as O-ring figures. That'd be kind of cool.
badass.
Next up, Crimson Guard Collective suggests that Cobra Flight Staffer has got me excited. Okay, so he definitely wants to see that happen.
I think it's off the back of that figure that this topic was given rise to.
Yeah, because,
that
I
is
mean,
the new
that-
Cobra that is absolutely essential. Like if you've got a Rattler display, he would look so sweet waving those glow sticks around.
And it's crazy.
like-
It came with the back of like them creating, like staffers for the flag, and then you pop a Cobra head on there, and it's a completely new figure. And something I think a lot of people would definitely want. Baltimore Bivouac says, I assume these guys' names would have been Takeoff and Landing. That would be so cool. GI Joe Rice is saying this is flag bait.
Well, yes. I mean, any number of kind of naval classes of figures would be an absolute hit. To anyone who had a flag, or anyone who has designs on having a flag, or anyone who believes that a flag is around the corner, Hasbro could shell us a lot of just carbon copies of Shipwreck with minor alterations.
Yeah, little differences. I mean, like green shirts, but like green shirts of different
Teacups. Let's call them teacups.
teacups.
Yeah. Classic 1940s sailormen. Because, yeah, look, a flag is a very barren thing without people just busying it up. And if you have named G.I. Joe characters, it quickly looks like a hodgepodge. It's like, and besides, you want your cool, that G.I. Joe infantry team to be doing cool G.I. Joe infantry shit. Not manning a radar in the guts of the
Yeah, he needs
the
to be
flag.
doing cool shit. We need the green shirts to be able to handle this, teacups to handle that.
Blue
This next opinion might be
Baby
a
shirts.
controversial one. Andrew
Oh.
of Senga 6 suggests they do new BF2K figures. Is that something we want to see? An update of the
Yeah, we-
Battlefield 2000?
I would love to see that, and I would love people to go and listen to our episode where we kind of reimagined how we feel BF2K could be. Because that is how I would like them to redo the O-ring figures, with some of those ideas that we discussed in that episode. Sorry to toot our own horn and be like, oh, we have the best ideas, but I gotta say, we had some solid ideas.
We
Yeah.
just don't need to treat it. It's something that our pal Dan Szymanski always comes back to. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think that might be episode 80. He certainly referenced it when he wrote to us not too long ago. But anyways, continue, Rob.
Yeah, and finally on Facebook, on Instagram, Dave C _ SFTP suggests a blonde female Cobra officer. Hubba hubba.
Sex does sell, I guess. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you can definitely
Darren needs some
diversify.
competition.
Well, for sure. I mean, you can kind of go. You can really create a whole variety of Cobra officers and Vipers. I think you could definitely do that. I mean, people love army builders, so go crazy. Give
I
us a,
personally
give us a
love
fat
that.
one. Give me a fat viper.
I
Very
don't.
to go
appropriate.
sneak peek. Well, true story, guys. I had a member of the cast that I was in, black woman actually, who came up to me and said, "Yo, Steve, I want to voice a character in your play motions, but she has to be a sister." Her words, not mine.
Ah.
I was like, "Dude, absolutely, I'd love that, but the toy line just did not provide." So I put
Which
it
is
out
sad.
to the Joburg Facebook group, and Cody hooked me up. But the opportunity to voice or have this chick voice the character has unfortunately slipped us by. So I'm sitting with a darker complexion Cobra female. And I thought to myself, well, that is terrific bit of diversity right there. Make it happen, Hasbro.
Yeah,
Come on.
do it. If we
If
can
you're
do
all
it, you
about
can do it.
playing up the diversity, show us the plastic.
Show us the plastic.
No, I'm
Or you
I'm
could just
done
make
with
a
that.
blonde bombshell Cobra officer. That's cool too. Like, you know,
could do that.
whichever flavor. Just
Yeah.
give
Hubba
us all the
hubba.
flavors. Yeah, man, please.
Yeah,
Give me
that's
options.
that's definitely a cue they could take from the reaction figures from Super 7.
But
Yes.
did you guys ever hear that there was a brief in the 80s that while the GI Joe team could celebrate as much diversity as possible, they wanted Cobra to all be white guys? Is that true?
I don't
I'm
know
not
if that's
actually
true.
sure. I mean,
Um,
I suppose in a way it kind of does make. I mean, they are kind of trying to drum them up as as a terrorist organization. But the thing is, they also
But a terrorist organization that isn't kind of
it's international.
ethnically skewed.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I mean,
nothing
nowadays
in
you
the
can't even
actual
call
wording.
Cobra a terrorist organization. It seems like all the Hasbro language does not. It always avoids the word terrorist.
Yeah,
So Cobra is an evil organization.
yeah,
evil.
evil, semi-evil.
Anyway,
'cause I
PC gone
evil.
mad. We can't call it the slave one anymore, and it's now Jabba Slayer Lair, whatever.
So
Gone
yeah,
is the hooded
but I agree with
Wakanda.
that. And I think 80s Hasbro made a good call with that personally, because like I think it would have been very. I don't think it would have been a smart idea to have made other ethnicities, like bad guys. I think that would have been
Well,
very
until of course the traitor,
untasteful.
the Sunbow episode where we had Claymore. Was it Lieutenant Claymore, Captain Claymore? Anyway, the guy who Dusty is kind of rubbing up against when he's in Cobra Command has got a darker complexion, shall we say?
Interesting. Well, that's everyone from Instagram who made a couple of
Okay.
suggestions for us.
I'll move over to the Twitter sphere because that'll be quick. Facebook is certainly where the biggest jawing happens. But as far as Twitter's concerned, we got a few wise guys. Of course, when I talk about ketchup and mustard, someone's always likely to ask, where is relish? And that someone was action figure trays. Thanks, guys. Or foam trays. Toy Bunker says that he'd like a trio of fatal fluffies, please. Once again, always with the jokes. Vagon would like any paratroopers. We've got Ripcord, but he'd like to see static line jumpers. He's not happy with. I mean, this guy he uses Crazy Legs as his avatar everywhere he goes. So, I mean, obviously he
Hey.
wants like a full platoon of paratroopers. I wonder what he's got them jumping out of, because I mean, a static line drop, you're gonna want a nice big cargo plane like a C-130. Come on, Hasbro. Sky's
Yeah.
the limit now. You know you've got us in the palm of your hands. And Vulgar would like to say, it's not ketchup and mustard, it's Riggs and Murtaugh. Two jokes.
What
for the
about
price of
Ranch
one.
Viper?
On YouTube, we got a handful of comments as well. Barmer would like to see Jodie Shooter Craig. Absolutely.
Yes,
I mean,
please.
if we are talking about the original 14 and not 13, she deserves to have her O-ring. Like, a modern figure is all very fine and well, but like, you need something that fits the OG 13 aesthetic. So, and clearly Hasbro is wanting to sort of restart things. This is going to coincide with their 40th anniversary, so the OG13 +1 are definitely on the cards. GI Go would like more females. My daughter and I love playing GI Joe, but the lack of accessible females makes it annoying. That said, we still have a blast. Also, a DIC accurate Night Creeper leader is necessary. Absolutely, a faced Night Creeper leader. If Deke is your thing, yeah.
Hey, I love the Night Creeper leader that we got. I personally think that's such a cool figure. So.
And I agree. You can never have too many females. It would certainly be nice to have females that like look good in an infantry squad, because the females that are in the line are all kind of very stand-out individuals. They're wearing red ninja jumpsuits or black leather or a tan leotard. Like Lady J is the closest, but still, like she's not looking quite tactical enough. Give us a female that is wearing body armor, has bullet belts or grenades, looking like, she's about to jump out of the Tomahawk, all guns blazing. That'd be pretty sweet. Well, James Schultz, I'm going to skim through it. Love to see O-ring versions of Quinn, Dr. Venom, Dr. Burkhart from Operation Lady Doomsday, an accurate Baroness from the early Joe comics, i.e. the blue jumpsuits. Hell, even Bongo, the balloon bear / Candy Apple. Her father, what was his name? It was Dr. Apple or Professor Apple. Yeah, man, that would be great. Thank you, James. Troy Smith weighed in. Hello, Troy. He'd love also more females in roles other than intelligence, like a female helicopter pilot, a female Cobra Night Raven pilot. Oh, I sense Paul's licking his chops right now. Some sailors for the flag. It's a lot of work for Shipwreck and Topside to do. He's fine reusing some of the old molds of the 1990s figures if the deco is the Night Force theme. And of course, let's see some vehicles, an Apache, Black Hawk, or even a Huey would be cool. Now that I think about it, if they copy the Super 7 reaction figures and gave them a little less cartoon look, that'd be a great start. Oh, yes, please. Everything that Super 7 is doing, but done with O-ring articulation, would be pretty sweet. Except maybe that Toy Master, the snow serpent with this like clown face.
I think that's just such a cool deep cut. But yeah, I hear you.
They're full of deep cuts. Jeez. The Shock Trooper? Shock... What? Those guys are like the Cobra astronauts, right? From Mass Device?
Yeah.
Okay. Bloody cool looking toys, but took me a moment to remember where the hell I saw them from. A to Z Cafe Moto, cartoon and comic versions of most. He's totally tapping into that Super 7 energy. And convention exclusives would be cool. And Big Lob. Yep, totally.
Yes.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's a Big Lob that doesn't have a Mercer head would be a great start.
Yeah.
Well, we all Sergeant Slaughter, Slaughterhouse. Hello, Sarge. Okay, I'm gonna skip the obvious suggestion of Sarge, but a proper Big Lob that isn't just a repainted Mercer head. Hey, I called it. Pythona, an original blonde cover girl, and maybe the Renegades in Marauder colors. The modern era offerings were not too bad. And Occam's Razor, last one I'm going to mention. They won't be making those iconic condiments, unfortunately. Don't truly matter to me what they make. Vintage is my jam. These would not be vintage. That's a good point, actually. They're with their gummy fingers and better tolerances, they won't pass the blind test. But anyways, getting back to what he's saying. However, if they rolled out a Big Lob or Pythona, wow, okay. YouTube is on the same saved frequency. He wouldn't turn his nose up to them. I guess some characters that were never made in the initial run would be a good thing. Reissues of figures that I already have are redundant. Hit me with the new stuff, Hasbro. Hey, would you guys like retreads of stuff you've already got?
Hit me with that new shit. I would like more new stuff. Dude, it's such a weird thing. For me, it's kind of grey because I would like some new characters, but there are some guys that I would love to have retreads of. I'd love to have, retreads of some of the Vipers, especially the Viper and the Night Viper, and some of those guys that are just really cool. And maybe you want to get more than one of.
Astronomical to army build.
Yeah, I think that would be great for
Retreads,
now.
but at the same time, you can redesign them, to a certain
Ever
degree
so
to
slightly.
update them.
Yeah. I
Update
think-
them. Don't give me the exact same version of, say, Scoop. Don't give me exactly the same as what he looked like back then. Update him, make him newer, so that I'm not just buying the identical figure I already own 3 times over, 4 times over. So.
Well, then I'm going to jump in with one of my suggestions at this juncture and say that, like, a lot of these are kind of pie in the sky picks that don't really, I suppose, take into consideration the realities of making up new tooling. And so, especially new tooling that is to a very, very specialized and unique character. Unfortunately, at this stage, and having listened to enough former Hasbro employees talking, I'm a bit too hip to the realities of how these things come about, and that you want maximum use out of minimum new cost. So things that are very pliable are gold, which is why I think a focus on army builders is brilliant, because just with a bit of parts mixing and matching, you can take a blue shirt, give him a bullet belted chest, and you've got a machine gunner. Or a blue shirt and give it a kind of I suppose, a more padded chest with like various pockets and places, and accessorize him appropriately to make him a medic. If the aesthetic of this O-ring relaunch is to kind of start with the OG-13 and the Cobra blue shirts, then expand those roles to give us more. For instance, Doc. He's the earliest team doctor, but he has no staff. And like one doctor operating on his own in a combat unit could very quickly, I mean, I don't have to tell you, very quickly become overwhelmed. Like he would need other doctors, nursing staff. Like I know medical scenes are not necessarily the most exciting to play up, but with a few minor alterations, you could take that basic doc presentation and make an entire team of medics.
Yeah, with head swaps, totally.
Absolutely. Head swaps, maybe arm swaps, chest swaps.
Well,
Let us play out MASH. Come on, guys.
well, this is
It
kind of
doesn't
where
have to be duds. Like it can be. My third and final kind of suggestion along the army builder line is, well, apart from green shirts themselves, and I had a specific name character that they could go after, and that being Sparks, the kind of comm guy who like completely surpassed Breaker at that job in the cartoon series. But if you're scratching your head and you don't know who Sparks is, well, just imagine Breaker without a beard, and then you've got a comic book accurate Breaker who's always presented without a beard and like seemed kind of more junior to the other team members. Like he was the punk kid, he was the Wunderkind, sort of the tech weenie, but still like a very youthful dude who, like, this grizzled beard wearing Bradley Cooper action figure kind of didn't properly evoke. But yeah, at the very least, you could be getting a new character, that being Sparks, who has got history with GI Joe out of it. And at the third least kind of option, you're at least getting a green shirt army builder. Also, like, who are the fire department for the Joe team? Like, is Barbecue the only guy? Surely he should have a staff, maybe a vehicle. You can do that very simply with head swaps. A removable helmet and different heads. And you've got an entire team of firefighters. Dedicated firefighters. Your flag deck is going to look so sweet with all these guys.
Fireman jump. So, is that all of your picks there, dude?
I could continue forever, Paul. You know me, man.
Oh, cool. No, because
One
just
of these days I am going to monologue an entire episode. You guys are going to be steamrolled. I'll just hit the mute button. But yeah, please.
no,
my
because
friend.
no, cool. Because I'm gonna throw up a picture right now, and on the image on this picture right now is Mara.
Take us through it.
So I'm a big fan of Sunbow and having a lot of these Sunbow characters released as O-rings. So we got Mara, we got Cold Slither, we've got Zemot and Tomax in their extensive Enterprises suits. We've got Raven, and we've got Hector Ramirez from 20 Questions. And
Raven
this,
being the female Native American Night Raven pilots.
that's correct, yeah, Stratoviper. So
Sorry, yes, yeah. Talk about diversity. That's the
right.
coolest pick of all, man.
Yep. So like my thinking is like to go with what you were saying is if you're gonna like try to maximize tooling but get like uniqueness, if they've built a really good body with a nice suit, that we could get a Hector Ramirez and Extensive Enterprises Zaymot and Tomax out of that. That could look really cool.
And
If
I've
we could
often said that Strata Viper's basic body mold looks androgynous to me. Like it could be female. It's small in stature because we all know, or maybe we don't, but let me tell you, the Night Raven's cockpit is cramped.
very tiny.
It takes a smallish pilot to fit that front seat without preventing the canopy, or not the canopy, the bottom slide out mechanism from closing properly. So Raven would just be a Night Raven pilot with a removable helmet, or maybe we'd have to have a head swap. Head swap
No.
and O-ring figures, not likely.
but
eh?
No, probably not likely. But my thinking here is that kind of that here's an opportunity for a female cast of a lot of the Viper bodies. Let's have a female cast of the Strato Vipers. Let's have a female body cast of maybe the Eels and maybe the Cobra Troopers and whatever. And then you can sort of start building characters like Mara and Raven from that, and then Cold Slither. I mean, if they want to do, let's say, cheap out, you could just take the original, Zartan, the original Dreadnought bodies, for the most part, except for Zartans, and you could just give them a new paint job. You can give them a Cold Slither paint job. You could release that as like a box set. I would love that, by the way. I would absolutely, just shrill in excitement if they did a Cold Slither box set in O-ring. I would live for that. And also, I know that I'm coming from a point of view where I've got a fairly substantial GI Joe collection now, something that I'm very thankful for. But so these would be additions to what I've got already, And this is why I was a little bit gray earlier on when you asked if would I want new figures or just retreads of the originals. And this is kind of why my knee jerk is more towards new stuff. Because I have a substantial GI Joe collection, I think I would feel a little bit different if I hadn't had that. But these definitely, these guys that I've got here are on the screen: Mara, Cold Slither, Zaymot Tomax, Raven, and Hector Ramirez are just some of the ideas that I have, or some of my thoughts. I would love a civilian pack. I keep saying this all the time, but I think if they grab some of the famous sort of civilian characters from the Sunbow line, like Dr. Metier and and it all, that would be great, because GI Joe needs that. GI Joe needs people to save, and it's something that like occurred to me with the classified line. Once again, thank you to Andrew and Ryan for your combined powers there. But something that made the classified line make sense to me was when I finally had dudes to shoot. Okay, so like when it was a case of I have like Cobra Commander and a Ninja Viper and a Ninja, and then I've got on the Joe side, I've got like Roadblock and Snake Eyes and Duke and whatever. It's all great, but as soon as you add like a Cobra Viper into the mix, or Cobra Officer into the mix to shoot and take out and play out like action scenes, it completely changes the game. And I think civilians would do the same thing to this O-ring line. But those are my thoughts. Rob, what are you feeling, my dude?
I like one of the biggest things I'd love is obviously a scoop. I mean, that goes without saying, but anyway, I'm
in
gonna say it
desert
up front anyway.
fatigues, in Arctic
Yeah, give just
thermals.
have them be ready for anything, And I think different versions of scoop. You can just do an entire line of scoops. I think that's a good idea. But what you just said also touches on the thing that I would like is like get characters that have previously been in environment specific gear into non-environment specific gear. So like Snow Job, get him into more like a more general purpose outfit. Dusty, I mean, he kind of works everywhere, but maybe give him a new color scheme. Deep Six, I think, would definitely be a good one you could put into a normal outfit. I mean, they've done them in like wetsuits before, but I think let's get him in normal gear.
There were definitely calls for the wetsuited characters having camos, And in
Yeah.
reverse, Sammy Six Toes on Facebook would like to see more characters using wetsuits, so
Yeah,
they can
you
have,
see,
I
that's
suppose,
what you
underwater
can
sequences
do.
with the regular guys.
Because I mean, in the cartoon, you often had characters get into, especially in the cold, they would have cold weather gear. They would wear that there, and they weren't. I mean, Lady J, she's not a cold weather. She doesn't have a figure like that. But she had those outfits, so I think you can kind of play around with environmental gear with characters, or getting them out of their specific areas that they play in necessarily. And I think, I mean, I
The
know.
cartoon did it very well. Like
Yeah, I think
anytime
so.
they were in the cold, they had like greatcoats on, but they still had their regular, well, the characters that had good-looking kind of pants.
Yeah,
Like
you'd still
Flint had
kind
his
of recognize
camos.
that they're in their
Hmm,
outfits.
yeah. I think there's a great screen cap of Scarlet. I mean, she's redesigned head to toe. She's got like green green trousers on, brown boots,
Mm.
and a overcoat that does call back her leotard, but yeah, looks thermal.
I can't remember the name of this guy on Facebook, but a couple of years back, and I was looking for these images, prior to this episode. This guy had taken a whole bunch of like ambush bodies and Stalker, the Arctic Stalker version 2 bodies. And what he had done is he had like just head swapped. So he had made these like teams, these sub teams, where he just put like, Tunnel Rat's head on them and whatever. So he had like an ambush, a force that was completely decoed out in ambush's camo and in Stalker's Arctic or Tundra gear. And I got to say, that was just so refreshing. I looked at that and I thought, well, duh, it's such an easy thing. That's such an easy win. But my word, it looks amazing. If Hasbro could take a page out of that playbook, wonderful. So I have to agree with you
I
there,
mean,
Rob.
I think a lot of people. I mean, I think I've often suggested before, create new characters, create new people, but then there's such a huge roster of existing characters. Just put them in new outfits. I think give them new special, maybe not new specialties, but give them like allow me to collect the same characters, but have them look different. I think.
So, would you buy a set of OG 13s, but retooled heads? Because come on, let's have slightly more characteristic heads, than all slapped into the snow job body. Like it's tricky because tooling budgets being what they are. Like I mean, take the thumbnail to this episode as case in point. We've got Ketchup and Mustard, Cobra Rave Viper, and Peter Pilot, who are all identical from the waist down. Identical. Okay. I think they've even got the same arms. So that is maximum mileage. These are 4 brand new individuals that are frankenshowed to be exactly the same apart from their heads and torsos. And in the case of Ketchup and Mustard and Rave Viper, it's the same torso even.
I think don't go crazy. I mean, maybe I won't buy an entire set, but I think if you could just do a couple of characters in different weather gears, I think that would be kind of cool. Like you could do, I don't know.
Prepare yourselves, guys. You know what that means?
Now what?
That means
All the Origin He-Man figures, the deluxe Origin He-Man figures, come with alternate heads. And so all the He-Man so far have come with a alternate head, which is like the so-called quote-unquote modern head, and a vintage head.
Oh,
And sometimes
no,
they've
Paul, I
given...
know what you're going to suggest.
So if they're gonna re-release all the OG 13s, why not give us the classic heads? If you're gonna give us resculpted heads, I think that would be fantastic. I'd love that.
Because
then we
I would go
wasn't a
one
thing
step
for
further.
O-rings.
Give us
Heads swap-
straight arm and swivel arm.
I think the straight arm is dead, guys. I mean, if
Yeah,
Mickey
no,
Mouse
no,
Cobra
it's no
Commander
straight
is
arm.
anything- If Mickey Mouse Cobra Commander is anything to go by, they're not going to redo the straight arm generation.
and thank
Yeah.
God.
But I don't think
Mickey
head
Mouse straight
swaps are a
arms.
thing with O-rings. And also, I don't think if they are going to go to the length of recreating an accurate breaker face, an accurate zap face, I don't think that they're going to then give us the Michael Ironside for Grunt, for Zap, and for, I'm blanking on the third one, Grand Slam. For instance, like they're gonna just stick with one, and it's gonna be factory fitted, and there will be no breaking out of screwdrivers, at least not with Hasbro's endorsement. Guys, I do desperately want to read out Darren Cobb's submission on the GI Joburg Facebook group because it is very well thought through. Battle Force 2020, like the old Eco Warriors, only anti-viral troopers. I think you know where this is going. Codename Face Mask, leader of the team, former member of USA MRIID. I don't know that acronym, but it sounds like it means business. Anyways, Darren says he's a holder of several degrees in antiviral studies, graduate of the U.S. Ranger Pararescue School with distinction. My kind of guy. Next up, we have Swab Test, a U.S. Marine doctor known for having the fastest/steadiest hands in the surgical business, even whilst under fire. Phenomenally strong, famed for carrying 3 wounded troopers 25 kilometers out of a hot combat zone. These do sound like G.I. Joes, I must add. And then lastly, codename Booster, Army corpsman and expert with the use of syringes, has almost encyclopedic knowledge of natural and alternative remedies for most ailments. Also a world championship dart player in civilian life. Hey, nice one, Darren. Definitely has a flair for that kind of Larry Harmer school of like taking a left turn with these characters. Like opens bottle caps with his eyeballs.
They do sound like
and
actual
he
G.I.
hits
Joes.
he got the cadence right. He's a student of file cards. But Darren gives us the info in the chats now. He says that the USA MRIID stands for United States Army Medical Research Institute of Infectious Diseases, which is an acronym that I'm sure wasn't not nearly as famous as it is today, thanks to a little something called, I don't need to say it.
Yeah,
Paul,
do
do you have something you'd like to add, my friend?
You say made! Sorry, I had to channel my inner Gungan.
Is someone vacuuming or using a hairdryer?
I believe there's vacuuming going on. I did not realize that the mic would pick it up. I'm so sorry.
On a Sunday. Oh, well, no rest for the wicked. Outback Stew has a long list. Obviously, Outback, Rock and Roll 1989, Leatherneck, Crankcase, Recondo, Spirit, Sgt Slaughter, Muskrat, Major Blood, Baroness, Scrap Iron, Bats, Range Viper. He just wants the entire line from 82 to 94. Hey, a man can dream, right?
Just recreate it in modern tooling. Okay.
We'd all buy. We would buy, and maybe just maybe that would be enough. No, it wouldn't be enough. You need to get kids excited about this, and to get kids excited about it, it has to have that kind of opulence that it enjoyed in the 80s, and we're never going to get that back. So, got to fight the battles that we can, I guess.
Hell yeah.
I also, by the way, Darren, those are really cool. I love those suggestions. I love the depth that you went into that. I'm gonna totally screen cap that post because you're giving me some ideas. But I do think that with today's toy market, if you look at Playmobil, if you look at Brooder, you look at Roblox, you look at quite a few of the toy lines coming out, even Lego, there's a lot of convention coming through, like in the form of conventional stuff that the world does, and I think more of that, and this comes back to my civilian suggestion of the O-rings. I feel like that kind of thing is a good thing. I think, Steve, your idea of a fire of a fire prevention force is a good idea. I think that's a great idea. I think that's the kind of thing that would do very, very well in GI Joe. That would be a cool way to modernize and to help modernize GI Joe. And I'm not saying that GI Joe should be taken away from being military, but I know that that's kind of a swear word sometimes. Culturally, is like making them army men that shoot people. Even though games like Call of Duty and stuff like that are still the biggest sellers. But anyway, whatever's. But if it was like a force that now has these cool teams that are like a medical force and a fire team force and that kind of stuff, I think that would actually be pretty good. And I think GI.
I also look at my vehicle pool and I think to myself, like most Joes are infantrymen. Can we just get some regular just schmoes to operate vehicles. Like, if you got a Havoc, who's next to cross country? Who's operating the guns? Like, I don't want to assign Roadblock and Sci-Fi and Lowlight to these positions. I want those guys to be my guys. So look, I'm paraphrasing suggestions that I saw on Facebook, but once again, they're all great ones, and we all kind of are thinking alike in a lot of these regards. But one thing that I'd like to pick out of Michael Sweat's response is characters that have typically always had covered heads, like Torpedo, Jinx, give us unmarked heads, and Quick Kick in some army greens. Maybe a casually open shirt with a white t-shirt underneath and some red Converse sneakers and his headband. I mean, that just looks so stylish in my mind right now. Oh, thanks, Mike. And a Snake Eyes with damaged army greens and a bandaged face with sunglasses. A Scarlet in pants and tactical gear. I mean, once again, pie in the sky suggestions, but damn good ones.
Yeah, you could pick out key moments in the comic books, or as Paul has done, like versions of characters from the cartoons, or even like later runs of like characters that are comic specific that maybe came out in IDW or Devil's Due, and make figures of them. I think you could still add to what's come before, but also like they can tool new things. Like that other companies do make new toys. Like we don't have to have everything based off
Existing
things that
parts.
have come before. Like you can do that. Tons of toy companies do that all the time. So let's not sell ourselves short and ask Hasbro, please repaint this and repaint that and make this look slightly different. You can create completely new molds. I mean,
a lot of
thing.
great characters can be created with existing stuff. Is the point that I want to try and get across, that like you can get such great mileage out of a limited pool.
Yeah, for sure. Instance, I mean, you can kit bash from tons of characters from the 90s and the 80s. If you just remold those, you can kit bash completely brand new figures, for sure.
I wonder if there would be prohibitive rights issues in terms of the Palitoy pool of characters. The Captain Buckingham, the SAS guy, and Campbell, the Z-Force guy. All these kind of named characters that come out of the Action Force.
Well, if Hasbro recognized an international audience, maybe. But when they're marketing their HasLabs and the whatever else to America and Canada,
oh dear!
I
don't get me started, Paul.
They need to think more internationally. I think that's this go international with who you're appealing to. Remember that you did an entire line of figures exclusive to Europe at one point, and you even managed to rebrand your entire toy line for Europe as Action Force as opposed to GI Joe. Remember that, and actually try and get in. There's money in Europe. There's money in Africa. There's money in Australia. There's money in Asia. Go crazy.
Yeah, like I say, don't get me started. Big axe to grind there. Rob Kalupitan, I've certainly heard this suggestion before. A blonde cover girl, yeah. Sgt Slaughter, Slaughterhouse had the same thing to say. And a female Cobra Trooper and Honda Lou. Yeah, I think it's pretty evident that we are starved of the fairer sex when it comes to the O-rings. I mean, it's never going to be 1-to-1, but certainly a little bit more female representation would be great.
We don't want a sausage fest the whole time. We just need some ladies on the team.
No doubt. Mark van Leeuwen adds to that by saying a Cadet Deming. She was a Cadet Crimson Guardsman, and the Cadet Crimson Guardsmen have blue uniforms instead of crimson. Terrific.
Interesting.
But she, yeah. I mean, I think you definitely have to change the physical appearance of a Crimson Guardsman uniform if you were feminizing it, because it is quite sleek and quite fitted, and it's a dress uniform, so I think you would see breasts and you would see hips. So yeah, can't reuse the Crimson Guard old mold. So Magnus would love to get Dr. Biggles Jones, if you remember the Transformers GI Joe crossover. Mangler.
Yes.
Yeah. Hit and run in winter gear and wetsuit in land warfare gear. Planned toys that never made it into production. Battle core stuff. Maybe redos and recolors of the Joes that were too colorful for their own good. Yeah, look, I mean, I'll just chime in and say that Ice Cream Soldier, for all his charm, looks a lot better as the Cobra. Was it Shock Viper? Well, basically, it's Ice Cream Soldier in blue. And let's see the Red Ninjas and all of the October Guard done correctly. Brand new characters as well would be great. We could see more non-diver Navy guys and generally more vehicle crew members and non-US members. Maybe we could get a Storm Shadow with bare arms. Yeah, that would be an easy retool. In fact, can't you just take Armadillo's arms and use them with classic Storm Shadow? I don't know. I've yet to try it myself. Yeah.
I will have to look into this.
Yeah, look, realistically, they aren't going to make as many O-ring figures as we would like, but there is no shortage of options for what kind of figures they could produce. And that would be new and interesting in some meaningful way. So yeah, that is, I think, the key sentiment here. Like, the well is deep. They need to talk to Mr. Flynn from Super 7 and just poach his ideas, because I think that's
there's
what
tons of
everyone's screaming out
options. I mean, it sounds like there's a lot of consensus, like you said earlier. Like, a lot of people want
More
new versions of more women in the line, versions of characters that have never had toys, especially from cartoon. And yeah, I mean, Stephen, your suggestion of expanding on staff, essentially. So not just green shirts, but actual like green shirts with specialties, you know?
Just to make
I think
those
that's a really great
vehicles
one.
and play sets less vacuous. I
Yeah.
hate sacrificing like amazing GI Joe canonical characters to occupy a seat in a thing.
You know, it's like, I'm Ricondo and I'm man on this gun. Yeah, have a good time out there, guys.
I want those guys front and center with all their accessories. Yeah. Anyways, I've made that point already. Dustin's got great suggestions, a lot of which we've already touched on. But he would like to add he'd like a new house in order to cram all of this goodness into.
Hasbro, get on that. Get him
Yeah, give Dustin a new house.
HCC 788 has this to say. He wants a set of O-ring crystal balls in rainbow colors, or he's going to stop collecting GI Joe.
Yes, please. I love that idea. Nice one, HCC.
I could get behind that. Why not?
And here comes a point that could very much absorb us for the rest of this chat, however long it might take. But Jim Godfrey says, not to piss on the new O-ring bonfire, but isn't this the gap that good old customizing fills? Why wait for a faceless corporation to give you what you want? Why not just craft those figures you really desire yourself? It's way more satisfying approach to toys in the long run to discuss.
I have to agree. I do agree with Jim on that. Mostly because I love the sort of entrepreneurial spirit behind that. And look at me getting all like capitalist. But we have seen that, you know, in the best way in the form of guys doing head sculpts for modern era and vintage era figures. I mean, most recently we had that guy that's done these amazing sort of head sculpts for vintage figures for Snake Eyes and Scarlet. I mean, that kind of thing is awesome. So yeah, I'm all down with the customizing. I kind of feel like it's a 50-50. I would like Hasbro to give us new stock to work with. So that's half of it. So if Hasbro could just carry on producing O-ring figures, then at least we have some like, you know, parts and whatever's to work with. And, you know, then we can combine it with the sort of creative endeavors of others as well. For those of us who are maybe not as creative, you know, or don't have the time to make stuff like that. So I feel that's very much a 50-50.
Like, unfortunately, the best I can do is Lazy Boy Customs when it comes to O-ring.
You kind of like
I
wash
dare
a
not-
figure with like paint, or like, you know, make it so his articulation works a bit better. I think that's as far as me and Steven got most of the time. You know,
I feel like
our
we-
painting antics were amateur at best. I mean, they were pretty mediocre. To be
well, that's what I'm
honest.
saying. Like the best we could do is do like a dry wash or a wet wash or whatever, you know, just to kind of make the character look more dirty. I mean, I think that was a huge improvement, especially with modern era sci-fi. He looks so much better with that. But that's, I think a lot of
We
people
didn't do
aren't
washes
skilled
on.
enough.
We didn't do washes on O-ring figures. We would paint them
No,
up
we never did
head
that.
to toe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but washes on O-ring figures, in my opinion, just looks wrong. Like,
Well,
No
it could be the
offense,
type of
but-
plastic used as well. It doesn't look good with
yeah,
extra detailing.
you then have to like do a matte coat over it. It just becomes like involved. It's just not
The
needed.
toyetic look of the O-ring figures is part of their appeal. They don't take to washes as well, I'd say, because it's not approaching or approximating reality. An O-ring figure should look like an O-ring figure. It should look like a toy.
But I also kind of feel like we've stepped on the landmine that could be a new topic in the sense that maybe what if Hasbro designs modern retro O-ring styled figures that are easily interchangeable? And I'm sorry that I'm bringing up a Motu Origins concept here, but that is something like, okay, I've never like looked at my Motu Origins figures and gone, oh well, you know, I really want to pop off Skeletor's arms and put them onto like He-Man, or I really want to, you know, pop He-Man's head onto, I don't know, Zodak's body or whatever, because at the end of the day it's all the same. You know, it's just the gear that kind of really makes them different in the most cases. I mean, sometimes you get different bodies like Mosquito, etc., etc. But there are a lot of people that are doing that. There are a lot of guys that have made some wild kind of customs out of their Motu Origins figures. And Mattel themselves have even made kit bashing a whole separate line in the form of the wrestling figures. So if Hasbro did somehow make it that you could pop the little O-ring figures' arms out and heads out and stuff, essentially we could have extreme lazy boy customs, you know? Like, imagine for a second that like the head on a modern O-ring figure is actually something that you could pop out and pop back in, you know, without having to disassemble the body, without the need of a screwdriver. That could be pretty cool, actually. That could tick a lot of boxes. Damn, I'd love that actually. Like, wow, that's actually wow. We need to make another letter to Hasbro.
Oh, jeez.
Oh.
Look, forgive me for challenging you on this because I gutsed, but I've got to play the conservative card once again and say the appeal of factory-made GI Joe O-rings is exactly that. They're factory-made. They are, you know, there is no fear that this is a work of art. It's been elevated. This is a mass-produced toy. As good as a custom can be, and as cleverly clear-coated and kind of sealed up as a custom can be, it still is sort of prohibitive against play for me. Whereas if I have a dime a dozen mass-produced action figure from a big company like Hasbro, I'm all of a sudden I have free license to just go crazy because I can always just buy another one. This isn't a one-of-kind thing. But maybe that just pertains to me. Maybe everyone else's collection stays very well curated. I guess I just want the big boys to shoulder this. I don't want the onus to fall to us to create those niches, because God knows we could. Like, out of all the parts bins in all the online resources and conventions in all of the world, you can come up with limitless numbers of parts. You know, parts are cheap because nothing beat the production runs of these things in the 80s and 90s. So, you know, you can customize your own figures, but I don't want to, man. I want to buy Hasbro's crap. You know, a different head slapped onto the same body 10 times.
And Rob, where do you swing on this, man?
I think, yeah, no, customs are amazing. And the fact that you can create your own characters. I mean, I was looking earlier, I mean, I didn't know much about a lot of the later characters in the comic books or in, I think, well, there was a character called Agent Faces, and I had no idea who he was. So I just did a Google image search, and, like, people have made lots of really cool customs of this character. And I think customs are awesome when you kind of, I think you have the creativity to do it, and you're happy with making something that's completely your own, and it's yours. And of course, there's people who make customs for other people, and that's awesome too, because that gives someone a job, that gives someone a way of monetizing, or at least doing something with their creativity. That kind of gives them money and makes them happy, and makes someone else happy. But yeah, I think sometimes you just want to be able to buy something off the shelf and have it be what it is, and not worry about
what it can be.
What it can be. You just I don't want to customize Scoop. Scoop is cool the way it is. But I think there's definitely a place for customization and mass-produced toys. Obviously, mass-produced toys makes it easier to make custom figures, because the more parts there are, the more options you have. Yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. I think they both coexist, and there's definitely markets for both of them. People who prefer customizing their own characters, as opposed to waiting for a big company to make the figures for them.
Okay. Because then to me, it sounds like you and Steve are on a similar wavelength there, in that, you like what it is in the box, but you feel like the creativity should be something that is self-motivated, not provided by the toy company in this case.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think in general, I mean, you can probably do that as like a gimmick.
So basically, the status quo. Yeah.
Yeah, essentially. I mean, you can do this as a gimmick thing. I mean, ages ago we had figures at the store. There was like a pack of basically blank slate figures, and they provided you with all of the paints and whatever else, and like different hands, and like I think a little bit of molded things that you could kind of either put on or leave off, and then you can completely customize the figure yourself. I think you can maybe go that route, but I think the kind of the in between where you have different parts that you can interchange yourself. I don't think that's a GI Joe thing necessarily, or at least it's not a thing that they've attempted, before. I mean,
I think the beauty of the O-ring is coming back to not having a secondary, and not having, removable, holsterable weapons. Like,
it's one thing, that's what it's held together with that screw. It's different parts held together. It's not meant to come apart necessarily. You can, of course, if you want to, but it's
with the exception of like the bat, like the Battle Android Trooper is the famous example of like a modular integration on an O-ring figure. But like, there's something to be said about the purity of these being absolute toys, and not a building toy or construction toy. Like Lego is the ultimate example of that, but this is an absolute toy. It's ready to go straight off the card. Obviously, the vehicles are a different story, but my reaction to custom figures or any kind of messing with the figures is like, I don't want to. So like, to your point, Jim, yes, you could totally create whatever your heart's content. Like, you can create anything. If you can dream it, you can create it, whether it be in the modern era buck or with parts, Lazy Boy Customs parts swapping with O-ring style. I've seen it done. It's impressive. But I don't want to.
Yeah, I'm gonna hold firmly on what Jim's comment has inspired in me. The sort of concept of like what Motu Origins has given that line, and it gave it something that previously never existed in that kind of form. And it's a take it or leave it feature. But the fact that it's so easy to do for yourself is great. And it is actually intended to the point where they give you a little manual to show you where parts can come off. I'm really loving that. I'm very firm on that. I can say that Hasbro will probably never do that, and that is for the points that you and Rob brought up now, Steve, because I think that's how they see their business model as well. But Jim, thank you. You've inspired some thinking, and I really appreciate that, because, yeah, I actually can imagine a world where we get retro O-rings that you could do that in, and that's a really cool thinking or thought. Thinking. Anyway.
Gaz would like to see Saturn. Oh yeah. The Cobra that got away. Whatever. Yeah, and why not have Shipwreck and Snake Eyes in that bloody kick line? Oh man, breakdancing, hilarious. But Matt Littleboy would like to see Cool Breeze and Mangler. That's not the first time I've heard those two guys. Comic book characters. If you don't know them, read Into the Hundreds and Special Missions. Action Robot Punch. Hello, Ted. Who doesn't love a wish list, especially at this time of the year? Mustard and Ketchup are great. More support crew, like a mechanic. A big bomb resistant suit guy like in Hurt Locker. A robot drone like that came with one of the modern tunnel rats. And other diffusing gear. A Cobra Mystic. Look at Hellboy for ideas. CC could be drawing on the powers of evil and other dimensions. That's very Hellboy. Very like
That's
Hitler,
how I see
actually.
Crystal Ball.
Totally. Cobra Cyborgs, better than bats, making them a kind of a Borg Star Trek reference, which is what Cyber Viper could have been under all that neon yellow. So this comes back to Magnus's point about take those 90s figures, give them a better color scheme. Hey presto, that's cool. The concept was there. It just was covered up. The Vietnam crew. He'd love to see Stalker, Snake Eyes, and Tommy. Well, yeah, we all would. And they did that comic pack, but that's now hen's teeth. I'd love to see them revisit that well. Because yeah, those were good figures, man. Good builds. And Andrew Creech would love to see the originals done again, but with slight color variations and the year that they were produced stamped on them so you could tell the difference. Yeah, no doubt. I think that's an important thing. Like, these have to be distinguishable. He would love to see the Cobra Law series of with a Pythoner. Saturn,
Python is a name that's come out a lot. Sorry.
No doubt. Sergeant Fox, Mara, or I think, yeah. Mara, you came up with that yourself, Paul. That's the mermaid girl with a blue skin.
Yep.
And
Yeah,
he'd like
man.
to see the other 3 Manimals produced. Wow, deep cut, dude.
Hey, why not? Like, why not? Like, I think GI Joe should lean into its weirdness. I really do.
What do you guys feel about like having like kids, like young characters, youths, at a 2-inch size instead of 3 3/4? I guess you could
I
get
don't
Billy.
know.
Really? Kid
I
Billy?
don't know. That's a bit much to me. I mean, like,
Well, it
then
was a
what? We're just
suggestion
gonna stop
from,
having. Yeah.
It was a suggestion from Pablo Acambo from Colombia.
Well,
Thank
it's
you, Pablo.
interesting. I mean, I suppose then what you expand to having like the family time, like off base, because I mean, like kids. I mean, yes, that you could do a one-off Billy, but then what do you do after that? I mean, how many children do you have running around on a battlefield necessarily?
I think for us it was child soldiers. If you really want to go to a
Captives
dark
of
place.
Cobra.
Real dark.
Captives of Cobra. Also a little town called Springfield, isn't it?
Oh,
But
yeah.
then we're going
Shipwreck
into
has
like
children.
Does he?
Hey, and they're synthoids. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
it's,
shit, yeah.
It's terrifying
good.
watching that episode now.
Springfield is such a good episode. Well, the mini-series.
But are we moving
in
like
my
further and
opinion.
further away from like GI Joe when you start making civilian characters?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think. I mean, I think it's a cool suggestion. I mean,
I
as a
just love
novelty,
it.
I wouldn't mind owning like a kid's GI Joe. I mean, that'd be fascinating. Like the 2-inch like this little kid. I think it'd be very interesting to own, but I don't think it's something I'd be knocking on Hasbro's door at midnight, going, "Give me children."
Yeah, Ryan Sweeney in the chat, no kid figures. Oh, there you have it. Sorry, young Billy. You'll never get your plastic.
But he does bring up a good point, because I'm sure you guys feel the same way when you watch a lot of like 80s stuff. I mean, when I say 80s stuff, 80s cartoons. A lot of those cartoons were centered on. If you watch Mask, there's that kid, and he's got I think it's Bebop 1, or what's the name of that little robot?
T-Bob.
T-Bob, thank you. Sorry, man. But you get what I'm like. That kid was like annoying, but it's a kind of a weird character, because on one side you're like, okay, I just hope this kid dies so that we can carry on, and then on the other side of you is like, you kind of like sit there and you're like, I wish I had a little T-Bob and I was running around in the middle of all these like battles and doing all kinds of naughty stuff and naughty things, should I say? And Speed Racer had the same thing.
By the way, thanks,
Yeah.
Chris. In the chats,
Hey.
saving our boat.
Like, so like I can
Oh,
see
and
the
Ryan.
benefits of a kid figure.
Yeah, everybody.
Well, they're appropriate to certain lines, but at least for me personally, I don't think it would be appropriate for GI Joe, other than say doing a Billy. But then you can also
Oh.
do an adult Billy, or kind of like a teenage Billy, where he is, you know, kind of. He doesn't have to be too terribly downscaled.
You know what they'd do, of course? They would just take.
Take a
The-
female character.
No, they would take
Alright.
Storm Shadow version 1 and give him an eye patch. That's
Yeah.
Billy.
Yeah.
Basically,
Billy in the look that you want him, basically. It's you know, he's ready for action. He's wearing Storm Shadow's all uniform. Look, realistically, these are awesome suggestions, pie in the sky suggestions, and I thank each and every one of our contributors for them. But we all know that we're just gonna get the first 3 or 4 versions of Storm Shadow, Snake Eyes,
Snake
and
Eyes.
Duke. and Cobra Commander.
over and
Except
over
that-
again, Cobra
No
Commander,
hood,
maybe
no hood.
Roadblock. You'll get a couple of Roadblocks.
Oh yeah, we'll get the first 2 versions of Roadblock. Yeah, that's as deep as this O-ring will run, and we'll have to just look to Super 7 for our How many bloody sailors did they make? Fucking hell.
All of them.
They made all of them. So yeah,
All the
if
teacups
if,
that come
if
into
you
the
if you're
party.
okay with $20 a pop, you can people up your flag. Cheapers.
But you know, there's also you can customize, do some customization, get in customizer. You can have your entire flag manned by your own unique characters.
I've got to jump out soon, but I had to share this with you guys quickly. Quickly. I mean, yes, we all know that Paul's got the Bio Viper, but I've got the gun. So I posted it on the local group. I was like, yay, I got a Bio Viper. And one of the guys was like, I got a gun for that. So thank you, Rulof, for my Bio Viper gun.
Cool gun, man.
It is a cool gun, right? So, yeah, so I was like, cool, I had to show you guys that I got this gun. And then on Facebook today, I spied somebody was playing with their toys. This caught my eye on Facebook. Bit of a Snake Eyes mission. And it reminded me a lot of Metal Gear Solid. And I'm sure Ryan Sweeney's like, that's mine. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So-
Snake Eyes. This is classified Commando Snake Eyes and Timber approaching some
Red Shadows
some structure.
installation. Yeah.
Ah, that's it. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I love this fence up here in the foreground. This is a really
Fence
cool
looks
shot.
really cool.
I mean, I didn't bring this up here because I wanted to like critique it, but I really did like it, and I found it was very eye-catching, and it evoked Metal Gear Solid. But not just that, it makes me want to play with my toys when I see pictures like this. So yeah, so I just want to cool to see, man. Awesome.
Well, I hope
Ryan,
you get the
why-
chance when you get home.
While we are on the topic of this fine gentleman, Ryan Sweeney, he asks about call sign longbow figures. And absolutely, they are their own thing. They seek to improve on the old classic O-ring buck. They have swivels at the wrists. I think the wrists actually pop out, like you can interchange hands, if I'm not mistaken. So there are mild improvements that can be made. But just like the Lego minifigure, I would want my O-ring Joes to remain timeless and kind of ignore the strides that, the lesser brands like Mega Bloks have made. I don't need a minifigure to have knee articulation.
The list
like
of
a Creon.
brands.
Look, call me a conservative or a purist or whatever, but like GI Joe is GI Joe is GI Joe. I'll flirt with these other products, sure, but when it comes to assembling like a shelf of like just my favorite knickknacks and playthings of all, that other stuff tends to stay in the drawer. I know myself all too well.
Well, I
Well,
think they
that's-
got it right back in the day. There's enough articulation with good sculpting around it, where you can play with it and the toy still looks good. I think they nailed it back then. I mean, you can add stuff and take away stuff, but I think this is definitely the formula for a well-made GI Joe figure.
Well, I just want to say that when Mega Bloks were quite prolific here in South Africa, especially the Halo line, there were a lot of those like Halo figures that were around the place. I didn't buy any of the vehicles. I just bought some of those cool little figure packs because they were quite cheap. They were like 150, 200 rand, and you got like 3 or 4 figures with interchangeable gear. I got to say, I had a lot of fun with those little toys. I really did. So there is something there to it, and I have the same reaction to that when I see Mega Blocks. I'm like, huh, Mega Blocks. Oh, it's the other people's Lego. But having not that I'm saying that's your reaction, Steve. I'm just being ridiculous. But having picked up some of those Halo Mega Block figures, I gotta say, yeah, they're pretty cool. But by that same token, when I see Mega Blocks doing Hot Wheels sets, I'm like, that's weird.
And He-Man? Oh, come on, Paul.
Yeah, listen, they
Surely
are
you wanted
appealing.
that Grayskull.
I don't want. It's weird. I looked at the Grayskull and I thought it was really cool. I was like, that's awesome. But then I was like,
Looks
I'd
like
rather
it's got
just
a high
have.
brick count. Like it's big.
Yeah, but I was like, hey, I'd rather just have a Grayskull, but I'd love to have some of those minifigures with like little vehicles. I think that could be a lot of fun to play with too. Like just have them here on the desk and just be like, you know, I could actually have a lot of fun with that too.
One
You know?
episode without some Heberg. I tell ya.
Well, you can't help it. Like Mattel is doing some great stuff, and don't get me started on Hot Wheels. Oof, I'm gonna save that for new stuff for our next episode because
Yeah, Paul, weren't you leaving?
I was leaving. That's why I don't want to get into it. I'm like, guys.
All right, I think so say we all. Slightly shorter session than usual, boys, but yeah, Paul had all sorts of issues today. Power, and then now we're running out of time. But as always, we'd love to say a huge thank you to the guys that keep the lights burning at GI Joburg HQ. Well, the lights burning when the national power grid doesn't have other plans. We thank our Berg Force, our Patreon supporters, for as little as $3 a month. You can
Thank you very
have
much,
early
everyone.
access to the episodes, and hey, even join us in live studio audience if the timing lines up sweetly for you. We thank
and for our
guys
Discord
who are in
after
the
parties.
chats.
Woo.
Oh yes, of course.
Cool, guys. Yeah, sorry, I do have to skedaddle, so thank you so much. I loved today's show. It was a lot of fun. And
good
this is
time.
something I've been sitting on since they announced O-Ring figures. I was like, I want a Hector Ramirez. Wait, I can do better than that. I want Raven. So, yeah, cool. Anyway,
We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Cheers, dudes. Have a good day. It was a good one. Hopefully Hasbro listens. Make us cool toys.
Yep. And if you have something you'd like to say to the show, get us at arealsouthafricanhero@gmail.com. I've got some lovely mails, and I'm gonna. Paul, you can bow out, my friend. I can take
Cool.
this one all on my lonesome.
awesome. I'll
Cool.
catch it
Cheers,
in the later listen. No, Biofiber, put your gun down. No.
Dramatic, isn't he?
Hey.
Oh, the studio's so much quieter with him gone. I mean, come on, he had someone vacuuming and then whatever the hell that white noise was.
Sundays are definitely not a relaxation day. I think it's
Mhm.
it's hard work to not be at work. I
No
don't
doubt. Andrew Grant reached out to me with a picture of Larry Harmer sketching a Baroness and Snake Eyes for him.
Ah,
Terrific
nice.
stuff. Wonderful. Rob, did you actually introduce yourself to Larry, or did you kind of skirt his table? I mean, did you see him at JoeCon?
No, I did. I got him to sign my. Well, I mean, not mine, but I mean, while I was there, I did buy a the special missions issue that features Scoop, and I did stand in line again to sign. I did introduce myself. So
Amazing. Sorry,
he
I
has
had
heard
forgotten
my
about
name.
that. Brilliant.
yes, we were all in the
Brilliant.
line that day. I believe.
No,
remember.
no, I skipped it, I think.
Yeah.
Cheekily, I gave Paul something from me for him to sign,
How could you?
and I missed the line. I was busy pricing a Mauler, I think.
That's probably what happened. Yeah.
Anyways, shout outs to Andrew Barron who emailed to say, "Hey Steve, just saw your Facebook update and Toymate vid. I'm assuming you're in Oz. Welcome. G1 Transformers are my thing rather than GI Joe, but love your work. Cheers." Well, cheers. Thank you, Andrew. Thanks for writing in. Great stuff from Kevin Morgan, who basically did not have any love for the APC until he slapped the transportable tactical battle platform landing pad on the back. Pulled off the top and put the landing pad on the back, and then landed a Skyhawk on that. And then, if you can imagine, just ahead of that, he's got a armadillo mini tank kind of turned to its side, and the cannons facing forward. This is an ingenious use of that. The fact that the APC is such a broad flatbed means that, yank that top off, and all of a sudden you've got all that real estate to kind of build on top of.
You can go crazy. It's like your own mobile, command center, essentially. Like a mini mobile command center.
Yeah. I mean, the Z-Force ATC did some of that by giving it new interior components and stickering. It had a med bay and a computer station and different weaponry. But that's only scratching the surface, man. That vehicle has such potential for modular transformations, and it's something that Action Robot Punch would probably make a project out of, if he hasn't already. Nudge, nudge, Ted. Yeah, the APC, and using those attachment points that the APC has to kind of clip things into the side there. 3D modelers out there, take note. It's a great basis. And I think that wraps it up for Postbox The Pit. I do have, as I say, a little game that was suggested for the three of us to play, but we'll save that for episode 230. We thank you for joining us on this adventure. Hey, man, we can only but hope that G.I. Joe's O-Ring Renaissance brings at least some of these wishes to fruition. Who knows, man? If for every dozen Franken Joe retreads we get, like Rave Viper, like Ketchup and Mustard, and Peter Pilot, aka Wayne Ruthel. I hate the fact that they haven't announced his codename yet. Come on, it's so awkward. Anyways, for all that gack, can they just bring us one or two fresh-faced new characters? That's all I ask. Surely they can. Find it in your budget, G.I. Joe.
Of course they can. It's going to happen. We'll see what happens. I mean, I think if they're serious about it, they'll do a good job. And I mean, they've over time, they've gotten much better at the classified line. That's definitely exploded. And, if you can make that stuff good, you can do the same with the O-ring stuff too. Yeah. Make it happen. Give us cool new toys.
Yo, Joe, Rob.
Yo, Joe, Steve. Yo, Joe, Paul. Bird.